Now we look into the interface of After Effects. There are a few panels that we need to look into. First, which is the project panels, where we import resources into this panel, and it keeps all the resources and compositions in this panel. Next, we have the composition panel, where we see the previews of our final animation over here. And we have the timeline panel, where we work on the panels over here. We animate, add keyframes and all that. And last but not least, the important panel, which is the effect and presets panels. We can always right click and undock our panel as well, or even dock it back to the grouping zone. I can just, the purple color is the grouping zone. I can just hold down my left click and drag and drop. I can also drag and drop until I reach the top zone, which is the section zone. And here, when I release, my whole composition panel will be on top. So if let's say sometimes accidentally I turn off some of the panels, what can I do? I can always go to Windows. If let's say I remember the panel's name, I can always go down to this section and click on the composition panel. So it comes back. If let's say I accidentally close again and I couldn't find back my panels and I forget the name. So what I can do, I can go to workspace. It's either I select all panels or I can go reset standard to save layout. Everything will come back again. Next, we need to create a composition so that we can go deep down into every panels. So first we go to the project panels. Right now we need to create a composition. A composition is like a basket for you to put your layers in. Let's head to composition. There are a few ways for you to create a new composition. First, you can click on the new composition over here, or you can go to the panel on top here, composition, click on the new composition, or you have a shortcut Control N, or at the bottom here, there is this create a new composition. So you can just click and the new composition settings pop up. So here you can rename it to tutorial and make sure that the width is 1920, height is 1080, which is our HD size. Or you can get into the presets and choose HDTV. 1080 is the height of the screen. 25 is the frame rate, and we choose pixel aspect ratio, make sure that it's square pixels. Frame rate, which is 25 frames per second. We can ignore the resolution for now. That is just for preview purposes. Starting time code is all 0. Duration, maybe we just put 5 seconds. That's it. Background color is the color that will present when you open up the composition. So let's click OK. Then we have a tutorial composition over here. So now let's take a look at our project panels again. When I select the composition, I'll be able to see the informations of the composition, which is the resolutions, the frame rate, and also the durations. So at the bottom here, I can always create a folder. I put it com, and I move the tutorial by holding my left key, drag and drop. So right now I have my composition under my com folder. Or if let's say I want to delete the composition, I can just drag and drop to delete. Right now I undo. So right now I double click my tutorial again. It will be reviewed again on our composition panel. At this composition, we see that there's this blue text tutorial. So inside After Effects, we can have a lot of compositions. If let's say you want to preview the compositions in your composition panel, you can just double click any compositions that you have on your project panels. Now in this composition, we have this percentage. Right now I select fit while I'm hovering to the in-between of our panels. You'll see that the cursor changed and I just drag. It will fit either the height or the width of the panels. I can choose 50% as well. I can preview everything, but right now if let's say I move it, it locks back to 50% preview. So for this is the quality of the preview. This is full and this is half. Normally, if we are in 50%, we will go for half. The higher quality that you are viewing, the more memory it will eat up in your After Effects. Next, we look into this toggle transparency grid. When I click on this, I can see that right now it's transparent. Why? Because there's no layers in this composition yet. So if normally when we want to check whether is a part transparent or not, we can always click on the toggle transparency grid. And this is the toggle mask and shape path visibility. Remember to always turn it on when you are animating your layers. We will talk about this later when we get into animations. And this one is actually the region of interest. Sometimes our graphics is too heavy. It needs a lot of memory to preview, and maybe our machine is not enough to preview it. We can always select this and draw a square that this is the area that we will be able to preview. If let's say, for example, I want to click full, and it will only preview full in this interest area. So let me get back to half and untick this interest region. And this is for you to choose the grid and guide options. So when you click it, you will be able to see that there's this title, action save. You have proportional grid, guides, and rulers. Normally, we just turn on the title and action save. And the outside one is action save. Inner one is title save. If let's say you have a lot of text that you want to put it in, you can put within the box inside here. This is a safety area when we put informations on TV. So I click here, I click it again, I turn it off. And now let's get to the rulers. And you see that here is the guide is actually thick. This is the ruler that we have. We can always pull out the guide if we need it from the ruler. So if you don't need the guide, we can always click and hold, push back to the rulers, delete it. So these are what we need to know in composition panels. At timeline panels, we have the time code over here. If you take a look at this is frame, second, minute, hour. If I hold down Control and click, you'll be able to see this is the frame rate. So if let's say I move this indicator, I'll be able to see the frames of it. So let's Control, click it back. Now we need to create a layer in order for us to know more about the timeline. We can always go to Layer, New, create a solid. Solid is like a piece of paper or an artboard for you to work on. I create a solid. Now I need to rename my solid. I just leave it as white solid 1920 1080. This is my screen size. And maybe I choose yellow. I click OK. You will be able to see that there's a solid folder automatically created. And this is the solid. You can keep on reuse by dragging it down. So let me delete this. Now here, in your composition panel, you will be able to see your yellow solid. And if let's say right now, I click on the toggle transparency grid, I no longer see the transparency. Let's move back to the timeline panel. Right now, I have a layer. This is the eyes for you to view it. And this is the solo that I can just see that solo layer. If let's say you have a lot of layers, and this is the lock layers, and there's this arrow here, you can always expand it down and expand it down. This is what you will be able to see. And these are the attributes that you can keyframes. And this little box are the color, we call it label. You can always change the color when you want to make your layers manageable. And this is the name of my source name. I can always, when I'm selecting the layer, I can always press enter and change the name. So once I change the name, you will realize that on top of here, you will see that it changed to layer name. Sometimes when you click on the layer name here, you will be able to see the name change back to yellow solid 1. So this is actually the source name. Right now I choose the layer name. Control donkey to duplicate your yellow layers. And I expand it down, go to my scale, just scale it down, yellow. If let's say I don't want to expand it, I want to go for shortcut key. For anchor point is A, position is P, scale is S, rotation is R, opacity is T, T for Thailand. So right now I want to scale it small. I press S, I scale it small. I press S, I scale it small. So right now I have 3 different solids. I just move it around. So I tend to know which is, okay, this is the third one, this is the first one, this is the second one. So now, if let's say I want to solo this, I only see one yellow rectangle over here. I click on this, we call it shy, and this is like a table and this is like a face, and you will hide the layers. If let's say you have 100, 200 of layers, you want to hide some of the layers so that you won't accidentally click on it, you can click on this icon and make sure that the icon is like hiding inside. And how you turn it on, activate it, you go to here and you just click. Now, even if you hide the layer, it is still there. That's why it still appears. It's just that you're hiding it from your timeline so that you won't accidentally click on it. And this is basically make sure that it's slanted this way so that your vector or your graphics is smooth. And this is motion blur. If let's say we turn it on, and we can see the motion blur when we animate it. This is adjustment layer, same as Photoshop. If let's say I turn this layer on as an adjustment layer, it will disappear. But when I move it to the bottom, it will somehow affect this area. So let's say it's to effect and preset. I click on the effects. I try to go for hue and saturation. I change the hue and saturation, put onto my adjustment layer. And if let's say I change it, you'll be able to see that whatever the layer has, it will affect. It will change. So this is an adjustment layer. If let's say I untick it, it will become the layer again. And this one is the 3D layer. We will talk about this later. Mode is our blending mode, same as our Photoshop. Track matte is the matte. We will talk about it later. Parent and link, we will talk about it later. Stretch is to speed up and to slow down your layers when you have animation. So for example, if let's say you want to add in this, or if you are missing out parent and link and stretch, you can always go to the empty area here, right click, go to column. You can always turn on things from here. Sometimes maybe AV features is hiding, disappear. So you can always go here, go back, turn it on. So all the left hand side stuff will be your AV features, labels, and hashtag. All things will be on the left hand side. If let's say your mode and track matte disappear, where can you open it? Just take a look at the 3 little blue color icons over here. So if let's say I turn this off, you get a missing motion blur adjustment layer panels over there. So you just turn it. If you want to turn it on, you just click, make sure it's blue. And this is for, and if let's say I click this, your blending mode and track matte is missing. So you can turn it on. So whenever, if you feel that there's something weird or missing out, you can always check on the bottom here, as well as the column. So here is your timeline, and here is for you to zoom in and zoom out in between your timeline when you want to keyframe stuff. So this is the working area. If let's say I put my in point and out point over here, what happens is it will only render or export this area. So for the effect panels, you can always take a look at all the effects that you have to play around. If let's say you know the effects very well, you want to search, like just now I search for hue and saturation, I type hue, it comes out. If let's say you don't like to work on the effect panels here, you can always select a layer, you go to effects and you will get all the effects here. So this is the interface of After Effects.